30 to 50% of your fractures produce 80% of your hydrocarbons.
That lends a lot of credibility. If you come in and can be upfront and honest and say, actually in this application, I think this product over here that I don't represent would be better for you. That all of a sudden now you become a trusted advisor rather than a salesman.
And I often say that we have all the requirements of space, right? Because it has to go underground and send us data from miles and miles away, and it has to work. Like, failure is not an option.
We'll put on, a standard mule shoe. Ours is slightly different just for that, but it's, everybody's got one.
The top drive and the drawworks really don't care whether the electrons coming at it are from a joystick or a PLC.
The panel, what you see here on the left, which is now controlled by one of my students, is showing you actually the control of our brakes.
As of now, geothermal is a pretty small market.
If you have tortuosity, the casing will be up against the side on part of the well. There won't be any cement there. The cement will have crescent around it.
So managed pressure drilling, it's been defined as a process to precisely control the pressure profile in the wellbore.
The key is being transparent with our clients in this case. So tell them what happened. If we had a failure, tell them exactly what happened. Whether it's our fault, whether it's whatever the issue was, we need to be transparent.
I think it's very important for everyone in the industry to know what's out there and kind of what's happening downhole as well.
I've probably worked on over 40 different performance limiters in my career. If I miss any of those and the computer is raising weight on bit and I miss any of those, I have a train wreck. The computer's going in the ocean.
Here's your new colors, here's your new thing. We won't do that at all.
Here's the tattoo you need to get.
Yeah, here's the tattoo. Sorry about the last one. We used to fake that all the time.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the Locksmith door. I can't say it.
The door locksmith.
The door locksmith.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the V-Door Locksmith Show. I'm your host, David Gibson, coming to you live from Wimberley, Texas, where we are unlocking the secrets to success in the oil and gas industry. One interview, one technical presentation, and one technical screw-up at a time. So happy that you guys are all here with me. It was fun watching the intro there, seeing Robert Trainer, who was one of the first guests to ever be on the show, and now he is part of the SLB crew, also no longer called Schlumberger. So interesting news all around this week. Feel free to drop your thoughts and opinions on that one. I think it's silly to say the least. A lot of money spent on change your name, but then again, United Parcel Service became UPS almost 20 years ago. So I guess it works for some. Maybe that's why UPS it is, because they wanted to be more green/brown. I don't know. Thank you guys all for being here. Let us know where you guys are watching from. If you guys are having any issues with watching this show on LinkedIn, we've seen some live streaming problems there in the past couple of weeks. Feel free to jump over to YouTube, where the show is going as well. Also on Facebook, but who uses Facebook anymore? So if you guys need to, I will drop a link to both in there. We'll see if anybody's actually watching on either one of them. Oh yeah, we've got 19 people watching over on LinkedIn. So it is working. Like I said, guys, let us know where you're watching from. Love to be able to give you guys a shout out here on the show. We've got an absolute amazing show lined up for you guys today, and future shows that are going to be coming up. Got some really, really great stuff. Also, some plans in the works for next year. We're going to be doing a torque and drag mini series. Not on the V-Door Locksmith Show, but it'll probably air Tuesdays at 8 a.m. I believe that's probably when we're going to do it. We'll probably be starting the second or third week of January. We're going to have 7 episodes teaching you all about torque and drag. It is going to be absolutely amazing. Phenomenal lineup of speakers, presenters. And if you're interested, we are looking for sponsors for it. Speaking of which, of the future video content, right? hold on. You can start to putting in hashtag Corva now if you want to. If you guys have been watching the show, you know what's coming up. But I also want to be able to put this out there. If you are interested, we are currently getting ready to film season 2 of How It's Done. We did season 1 back before the pandemic. It has taken way too long to get season 2 out there. If you haven't seen it, go over to the YouTube channel. We've got season 1 of How It's Done. This is the intro for the show. So I'll play this real quick. Absolutely love this. If you want to be a part of it, if you think there's a company out there that manufactures something in the oil and gas industry and you'd like to be able to see how their stuff is done, how it's created, the manufacturing process, please give them a tag in the comment section now. I'll play this and then we'll do intros. We'll do the giveaway and then we'll do our guest. Golly, it's such an awesome intro. It just gets me pumped up every time I watch it. So, all right, let's give some people some shout outs. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. All right, Paul Moore says he's tuning in from Saudi. John DeWart, as always, he's always the first one in here. I appreciate it very, very much, John. Thank you so much for supporting the show and having been on the show as well. All right, LinkedIn user tuning in from Houston. Technique Solutions from Houston. Hello. Well, thanks for being here. Andrea Switzer tuning in from West Texas. She was on the show 2 weeks ago when we got cut short, but we will be doing it again soon. Jocelyn Entity tuning in from Abu Dhabi, where they're going to be having ADIPEC next week. Yeah, ADIPEC's next week. So I'm guessing some people are already on flights out that direction. Ron tuning in from Willis. Jenny Wilson tuning in from Dixon Directional in Cypress, Texas. Thanks for being here. LinkedIn is running well today. Thank you for letting me know, John. I watched a couple of things the other day that were not working so well, so I'm happy to know that our show is working. Sandy Lawson tuning in from Aberdeenshire, 32-year gyro data veteran, and now a SLB, lowercase SLB even. Andrea already getting on it, hitting in hashtag Corva. Willie Cole's Workhorse 1 in the building. I'm guessing, is Workhorse a Transocean rig? I think so. That's cool. If somebody's watching from a rig, I don't know if everybody, I know some people have said they've tuned in from out in the field, but nobody ever specifically said what rig they're watching from, so that's cool. All right. Taking the day off from Wild Well Controlled Oklahoma, sending out invites for the Oklahoma or OCF OKC free lunch at the City Mission Rescue Chapel, Oklahoma City on Thursday, November 3rd, RSVP. There you go. Something to do, something to see there. LinkedIn user from Pakistan, thank you for being here. LinkedIn user from India, thank you for being here. And then Yasir tuning in from Pakistan. Well, thank you all for being here. We do appreciate it. All right, it is that time. We have an absolutely amazing show partner in Corva. And I forgot to put the thing up there. There we go. Put in hashtag Corva for your chance to win. They're all too far away from me to be able to reach right now. Tracy, I'm all clued up here. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is not complete. But look, it's a pink drill bit. Oh, I forgot to take the guy's thing off there. Hold on. Doop. We've got pink drill bits for the month of October for breast cancer awareness. So I need to post that video today. There's another one. All right. We're giving away drill bits. If you wanted yourself a drill bit, put in hashtag Corva right now. Love to be able to get one of these sent out to you guys. Working with our show partner. Let's do this. So we also, Chris from San Antonio. I tuned in from Saudi Arabia. Everybody's actually starting to comment now. Eric from the south of France. Jocelyn, hope to see you all at ADIPEC. Oh, I was going to go, but I'll be at Corvacon next week. So, banners, brand. Here we go. Show partner, Corvacon. If you're in town and you're not at ADIPEC, great thing to go to.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan Dawson. I'm the CEO of Corva. Next month, we have Corvacon. This is our annual big event and you have to be there. We're talking about the future of the industry. We're gonna have food, drinks, music, you name it. So we wanna see you there. We wanna have you part of this conversation.
This is not a sales conference. First and foremost, Corvacon is about the oil and gas community coming together to share ideas, working together to create synergy and new opportunities. Innovation at your full potential. Corvacon is centered around community, connection, and collaboration. We want to bring together the best minds to accelerate the future.
All right, there we go. Hashtag Corva, put it in now if you can. I will be, let me take this off the screen. It's driving me nuts. I will be there next week at Corvacon. I will be live streaming on Thursday. We'll also still have a show on Friday, so you're going to get 2 viewer locksmiths next week, as well as I'll be moderating one of the panels. So if you guys can't make it out, if you can't, I understand. Might be at ADIPEC or travel on your way back. So let's do a giveaway. Add to stream. Here we go. 14 entries. All right, everybody. Hashtag Corva, ready, set, go. All right, let's see who the winner for this week is. I have a feeling it's going to be Andrea Switzer. There we go. Andrea is the lucky winner this week. She was actually a guest on the show. She was the first one to jump in there and be able to put it in there. So congratulations, Andrea. I will be sending you another drill bit. She's already won one. No, she didn't win one. She did me a favor and then I paid her in drill bit. So, but this time she actually won. So to her. Thank you so much for watching the show and being here. We do appreciate it. All right, let's get on with today's show. We've got an absolutely amazing guest for you, Rodrigo Rendon, who is the head of business development at KCA DEUTAG. Rodrigo, thank you and welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, David. Really?
Don't be too excited.
To be here, just fighting with technology because I cannot connect through my work laptop. So ended up using my son's iPad that was on my backpack. So let's see how we get on with that.
So you're not playing Minecraft with it? Is that what he would normally be doing with it?
That's exactly what it was on my iPad, right? On my backpack, right? Well, but I think we managed to get through the technology challenge, right? I was just trying to connect again on the laptop, but now it's not working. So let's just keep going like this.
All right, no worries. Well, Rodrigo, for everybody that doesn't know who you are, give us a quick background of who you are and what you do, please, sir.
Quick background. That's an interesting question.
Or you can take as long as you want. It could be a long background. You can give us the whole story, whichever one you want to do.
We'll keep it short and sweet. Been working with for KCA DEUTAG for the last 13 years, 13, and most of the time on the same role as head of business development, which I guess is quite an interesting role, right? And people typically don't last that long on the same positions, but I guess I've been lucky enough to be doing a little bit of everything in this role. Sometimes offshore, sometimes land, sometimes technology. So that has kept me going, and it's quite an interesting company. Not very well known in the North American side because we don't operate there, but clearly on the international market, far more recognized, particularly Eastern Hemisphere, Europe, and Middle East. So that's what I've been. Started my career. Now you cannot say Schlumberger, I guess. You have to say SLB, which is the news on the last week or so. Started my career there. Angola, Venezuela, Europe, and I guess that's a very short view.
Well, give us a background on who is KCA DEUTAG and what do you guys do? Because obviously, like you said, you guys don't operate here in our part of the world. You guys doing stuff elsewhere. So for those that don't know, what is it that you guys do?
It's always quite interesting to go to the States, right? And we go three, 4 times a year because our main customers are there, and we need to keep close to them. But once we are out of the bubble of the main customers, it's interesting, exactly as you said, David, that not a lot of people know who we are and what we do. So we're an international drilling and engineering and contractor with a big focus on technology and recently on energy transition solutions. So we operate a fleet of land rigs, particularly Middle East and Europe. As I said, we used to have quite some countries in Africa, and we've been reducing and consolidating now. We used to have Gabon, we used to have Nigeria. We're now having only Algeria and Angola. In the Middle East, we have Saudi, Oman, Iraq. In Europe, we do a lot of geothermal work in the Netherlands and normal oil and gas work in Germany. In offshore side, it's again a strange mix because we keep a capex light model, meaning we do not own the rigs that we operate offshore. These are typically fixed platforms, so the drilling rig is integrated into the production asset, and it's owned by the customer. So we operate in the North Sea, Norway and UK, the Caspian Sea, Canada, Eastern Canada. We got a contract 2014 there, the Hebron contract. And the beauty, I guess, is by having an engineering division or by having the manufacturing of drilling equipment, we're able to go or to start our work before the spot of the well, if that's perhaps a way to say it, right? We can start by manufacturing the rigs, the land rigs that we will use, or we can start by designing the offshore rigs that we would use. So starting way early on, that's I guess the preferred model. And we try to not play in the North American market, but hopefully try to make an impact in some of the other ones. Have you heard about us before we met some time ago?
Yes, I had. So one of the guys that I actually rent the office from here used to work in Oman. And I guess before it was KCA DEUTAG, he said one of the DEUTAG rigs was he says those were some of the best rigs that he was ever on out in Oman. So I have heard of you guys before. I do keep up to date.
That's typically what I find when we go and talk to people. When you go and talk to the drilling managers these days, at some point, most of them have passed through one of our rigs. Call it in Oman, call it in Libya. A lot of people pass through some of the rigs in Kazakhstan. So that's I guess the image they bring now, being in the office and being in charge of operations. That's they always remember, as you said, when I was in one KCA DEUTAG rig in whatever. And yes, it was the DEUTAG side, right? It was before the combination of KCA and DEUTAG that happened, I think, way before my time. I think it was early 2000s.
So you touched on it there that you guys have got rigs in multiple different countries. You're essentially a international drilling contractor and engineering firm for that. What are some of the big challenges y'all face in covering such a vast area and having to work in so many different areas? Because I mean, for me, I could only imagine having to be able to keep up with all of the regulations for every area, much less having to do logistics, manpower, and some of the other things that go into it that I'm just guessing at.
Yeah, it's tricky, but I guess at the same time it makes it fun, right? If if everybody could do it and could do it well, perhaps there wouldn't be that much work or that much recognition. But no, it's not easy and not straightforward, particularly the land side. On onshore, if you think about the US or the big basins that you guys have, everything is in there. You have the logistics, you have the roads, you have the relatively easy transportation, the relatively easy access to services. Yeah, in the international market, it's certainly not always the case. I remember a few years ago going to Kurdistan, right, to the north part of Iraq, and just realizing how difficult the logistics were. Mountains, snow, very little infrastructure, and still, we were, I think, the first international drilling contractor that went into that area of the country, and soon enough, a lot of our other competitors, neighbor Parker, they started entering that country too, because there was a big push for production there. But it's not easy. The customs, the taxes, the employment regulation, the communities that you need to interface and ensure that you keep on your side and that they see value from what you bring. It's quite challenging, but it's, I guess, as I was saying, right, it's quite the fun of it.
So how do y'all determine what areas to go into and which ones that, may not be the, best suited for y'all? Because I'm guessing y'all are probably getting invited to go to a lot of places, or at least, hearing opportunities.
That's a great question, David, because we get some opportunities through people that know of the company, but some other times we get them even on the website, right? Tender for Bangladesh, tender from Tanzania, tender for, and it's hard to basically evaluate and say, yes, we're going for this, we're not going for that. I guess on land drilling, particularly, it's important to realize that the business is pretty much tied to scale, right? So you need to have scale in the countries where you operate, right? The more scale you have, the easier things become. So over the last few years, and from as a strategy, right, it's been to try to consolidate and build scale in markets that provide consistent work and good returns. And that's what we've been trying to do. So when the tender comes and says, what about if you go into country X, and country X is far away from anywhere where we have rigs, the opportunity or the work is potentially 2 wells, and there's 3 other contractors around that have rigs ready. I should doesn't take a rocket scientist, right, to say, what, rather politely decline. And that polite decline needs to be done with a little bit of care, right, to tell to the operator the reasons why not, right? And at the end of the day, it's hard to be commercial, right? How can you be commercial moving a rig into a country for a short campaign, and then you have to find follow-on work for that? So it's a little bit of discipline to learn to say no, I guess.
Well, what's the most interesting place that y'all have drilled in?
I think they are all interesting. They, their own right, they all have a lot of peculiarities. They all have their own rules, their own regulations, and you cannot really go and say apply a rule as a this is right, this is my way or the highway, right? You need to be flexible and adapt to the environment. But at the same time, if the customer is hiring a KCA DEUTAG rig, it's because the expectation of service is such in terms of safety, in terms of efficiency. So you need to really make sure that you adapt to the local environment, but somehow you keep that performance. That is what basically sits behind the brand. So it's quite it's a hard question, right? What's the best restaurant you have eaten in? It's impossible, right? You eat good Indians, good Thai, good Mexicans, good whatever, but you at the end of the day need to make sure that you adapt and deliver and manage the environment and make money, right? At the end of the day, it's not that we're a charity, right? So everything needs to be with a commercial focus behind.
So how is something like that, taking on that challenge of keeping up with, being efficient, having performance, keeping safety, when you do happen to go into a new environment or into a new area?
It's a lot of diligence in front, and that sometimes happens to land on my team. Fortunately or unfortunately, send Rodrigo, let him go and find out how it is. If he comes back alive, he'll be fine. I'm joking, right? But it's there's a lot of diligence to make sure that you understand the environment before you decide to go, even before you tender. If you're going into a new country, you need to understand everything, right? From employment legislation down to customs, permanent importation.
Uh-oh.
Sensor just decided to there you go.
I think that's a first on the show. Somebody had their lights turned out on them.
Hey, we're all saving energy here. Permanent importations, taxes, you name it, right? There's actually quite a lot of diligence that needs to be done before going into a new country. And I'm sure we're not the only ones, that as new oil provinces, particularly a few years ago, right, were starting to come up, and companies were basically starting to divert to those geographies. I'm sure everybody, the homework they had to do had to be pretty thorough to make sure that they understood what they were getting into. And perhaps some of the guys that didn't do the good homework, perhaps they ended up losing a little bit here and a little bit there, right? Because there's always things that could come and bite you. And if you knew about them and you were expecting, at least you can be ready and prepared, right? If they were just catching you by surprise, pretty tough.
So I don't want to miss this because I love it when we do get questions. Rodrigo, are you drilling under lump sum turnkey contracts? If yes, what are your lessons learned? That was from Mr. John DeWard.
From John, yeah, he's always a tough question at some of the conference. We've done some lump sum turnkey, and we typically done it in specific geographies, in specific countries where we have the scale, when we know the suppliers, and when we have the people internally to manage that. We're not doing it for everyone and anywhere. It needs to be a pretty conscious decision, John. It's quite a risky, if I would call it like that, quite a risky endeavor, right? So almost back to the same as getting into new countries, right? You need to make sure that you understand what you're getting into, that you have a really well set of offset data, that you really, ideally, that you have drilled some of those wells before, right? So you know what's coming at you, and you can actually do it and estimate it, that you have really good partners that would be there to provide the well services that you need when you need it. that way it works for everyone. But yeah, I guess we don't do it often, and we certainly don't do it everywhere. I don't.
Well,
question.
So I want to follow up with that. What role does the technology then play into this? Because I know, like you said at the beginning, you guys are leading with technology. I know that you've led some of the technology campaigns. How does that, kind of like fold into, what you guys are doing and how to go forward and what jobs to pick, which ones not to pick, how to bid it, how not to bid
it? Yeah, good question.
I'm not going to ask you any bad ones.
No, and you're certainly going to put me to think a little bit. You need to use that technology as an aid, right? As a stepping stone to actually allow you to either estimate that lump sum job better or to deliver it faster. Let me give you an example of what we did to estimate it better, right? Ever since I joined the company, there's the electronic drilling reporting system, and in the electronic drilling reporting system, people put the comments about what has happened at in the well at the same time as they record the drilling parameters. So we started doing some AI on those comments to try to identify without human intervention the well issues and the rig issues and the safety events that they were happening on the wells, and they would plot them against the time depth curve. So an opportunity to tender a lump sum turnkey work for P&A came our way, right? And we have done quite a lot of P&A work, particularly here in the North Sea. So we started using this AI to look for the well issues that we were facing as we were coming in to do the plug and abandon on each of the wells, and to try to see how much issues we were facing on each of the wells, because most of these wells don't always have all the information, some of them being shut for years. So when that actually helped us to try to say, you know what, the operation should take 10 days, and we typically face these many well issues, therefore is half a day more or a day more on average what we should expect, right? And since it's been data from 2000 and something, right, it's quite a good number of wells in there. So we use that to try to estimate with much more accuracy and confidence what would a lump sum price could be. We use some of the other technology. For example, we have some of the Opti products that are typical drilling optimization softwares, right? We use that to try to have a better performance when drilling a well, and try to make it faster and a more consistent result. So we use a lot. For example, we presented an IDC World Drilling some years ago, a system that we have developed internally that is basically a set of checklists of operational processes and procedures that the crew can take to the rig floor on a tablet that is explosion proof, is ATEX, and they are basically okay to take to the rig floor. And we found that a lot of the accidents and incidents happen because people don't follow the procedures, right? People try to find ways around it. So by having this very simple check or tick box process, literally with one or two statements of what the people need to be doing, that basically help us to assure procedural compliance, right? And again, if you have a crew that follows the procedure, a crew that doesn't look for shortcuts or different ways or alternative ways that they think are better, but actually is not written on the plan, then they are less likely to have incidents. They are more likely to finish the well on time. So we got a lot of feedback on that, right? Of people saying it was a tool developed by drillers for drillers, right? It was simple. And that's what we try to do in most of our technologies, right? We need to have something. We know the business, we know what it takes, we need what the people at the rig floor need. So we try to develop solutions and have answers that are simple for the people on the rig floor, and that is what we're using day in and day out to try to improve the way we operate.
So what are
that make any sense? I'm sure I remember.
No. So I've got two more questions, but I want to be able to ask this first. What are the trends that you are seeing in the future as far as drilling rig technology or technology being used on the drilling space? Where do you see the rigs going here in the near future or long-term future? You just tell me whatever you want to, Rodrigo.
That's there. If you remember, David, some years ago, and that was before COVID, right? My memory is starting to get mixed up, but some years ago there was this whole discussion in the industry about the rig of the future, right? And you're like, so what is this rig on the future? And everybody was talking about the rig of the future without really being able to define what it was, right? And it was topic of discussion for quite a few months, and then suddenly it died a bit, right? And I almost feel the question along the same lines, and I'm not sure it's around the rig of the future, right? But I think there are two trends that we need to maintain as a drilling industry. One is automation, and the other is the drive for remote operations, right? Perhaps there's some similarity between the two, but I think in essence they are slightly different, right? And I'm not going to preach to the converter or basically stand here and tell a lot of people that know much more about technology than me. Both those things, the automation part in terms of the machining, right, and the removing people from the drill floor. There's a lot of advances currently around complete process automation. We had a fully automated rig many years ago, right, that we did in collaboration with one of our customers, and it was, I'd say, one of the first of their kind, and that was way before the latest ones that had a lot of press. And it was a rig that basically didn't need anyone on the drill floor and was doing everything on an automated basis, right? The only people around were the driller and the assistant driller in the doghouse. So I think we need to keep up that trend and continue advancing the automation part. And on the remote operations, there's the part around exactly that, right? And there's a lot of companies out there working on the algorithms to set up drilling parameters, to improve drilling parameters. There's a lot of companies working on the remote operation centers, on bringing directional drillers there and looking at 4 or 5 rigs. Those are trends, those are trends that we need to continue, but they need investment, right? And that's I guess where the drilling industry just need to make a conscious decision to continue that journey and to continue that route of investment and development of technology to eventually continue advancing those things, right? We're just coming out of quite some hard years, right? Hard years that we perhaps have not seen in a long time, being this long of a hard time. But as we come out of that and things begin to improve, we need to start putting some of those dollars back into R&D, back into technology, back into finding and continue those two things. What are you seeing, right? Do you see Is that way too generic, or are you seeing some other interesting trends? I know you're the one asking the questions, but
This doesn't happen very often. Nobody really ever asks me any of the questions, and I would say, I think, and this plays into one of the next questions here, has been, and so I'll play into this, because this will be the question for you. Any major enhancements to adopt growing needs for ESG performances? And I know that you and I have had this conversation before at the IADC ART conference, which was essentially the ebbs and flows, the sine wave of what's interesting. And you and I were both at that IADC ART conference, and so much of the conference was about ESG. And I don't want to sound like a bad person or anything, but I do think that it's the flavor of the month right now, and that's the thing that's of most concern. But I think that there's going to be a point where that portion of the business gets kind of taken care of, and it's like, okay, yeah, now we do that, and then we go back to what is the core thing that we do, which is drilling holes. And yes, maybe ESG falls in line with that. And as you design and develop things going forward, there is an ESG part to it that, it's like, oh, we're going to do a new pipe wrangling, or we're going to do a new thread check, or we're going to do this new XYZ. And it's like, is it safe? Is it ESG? Is it efficient? Is it cost effective? Like, ESG is just going to be another bullet point in there, as opposed to being the driving point that we're seeing so much across the board right now. With that said, though, then I'll turn the question back over to you. What are, back to Eric's question, any major enhancements to adopt growing needs for ESG performance that you guys are handling right now?
So I'll get to that question, but I'll ramble on for because that chat that you and I had, and unfortunately wasn't over a beer, right? It was over horrible stuff.
Tacos. Oh no! Well, oh yeah, it was two parts almost. Yeah.
That part of the flavor of the month is the one that we were discussing, and I think we need to be really conscious of, right? And whether we let ourselves be blown on the direction of the wind, or we try to stay a course, right? That's, I guess, for each company and individual to decide. But at 2018, 2019, it was all about technology, right? And everybody was talking about technology, and that was the flavor of the month. And you couldn't have a conversation without getting into that topic and what are you doing there. And suddenly we find ourselves in the world today that the flavor of the month is ESG, and you need to have an answer, and you need to say what you're doing, right? And I think along the lines of what you were saying, right, and that's my personal opinion, you need to be, as a company, or almost as a personal career decision, right? You need to be clear on what's your direction, and yes, these things come at you, and you need to adapt to the market and have a solution for technology, and a solution for ESG, and a solution for whatever it comes. But your business, or your career, or your direction needs to be pretty fixed. So on that, and now getting to Eric's question, we're doing a lot about ESG, and it's not just only on drilling. But let's touch first on the drilling side, right? It was surprising how in that art conference that we attended in Austin, David, someone went and stood on the podium and said, we're going to have the first fully electric rig. And I was just sitting there, I was just like, really? Right? We've been running electric rigs in Europe since 1980s, maybe even before, right? Because all the rigs, or here, particularly those that in Europe, particularly those that were close to cities or close to towns, always going and plug into the grid and run on fully electric power, right? So we've been doing that for ages, right? It was just part of how the cookie crumbled, right? We were not doing too much marketing about it because we were just doing it. And now had somebody that says, oh, we're going to have the first fully electric rig. And so like, well, not really the first, but we're doing that, and we've been doing that, and we're now having as a special kind of fully offering, right? This is this is the way you do it, and this is how you need to connect. We're doing, for example, in our data and video platform, we started putting now real-time measurements of CO2 emissions that the crew can see all the time, and you'll be surprised how much the human behavior changes just by being able to see what you're emitting, right? The practices of, let's not, a silly example at home, let's not leave the lights on when nobody's in the room, right? You actually start to take those decisions when you're seeing how much your emissions are going up. We're having a battery energy storage system, as many people are, but this is one that we designed and we manufactured. So there's quite a lot of initiatives that we're doing there, right? Another really cool one, on the fixed platforms that I was telling you about, it's the power comes from gas turbines that are part of the production facility. So they typically don't use diesel generators. And a lot of the operators on those rigs were scratching their heads to see how could they basically show reduction of emissions on those fixed platforms. And the main question is, if we're going to show reduction, we need to know where we are. But how can we measure where we are if the power is shared with production and we really don't know how much is coming to drilling? So we started doing with our engineering team a very, very interesting engineering study that was looking at the power requirement for each piece of equipment on the drilling rig. And we basically started adding the power requirements for every single thing on the drilling rig to try to establish a baseline and work out this very cool spreadsheet that now can actually tell you in advance what is the expected emissions that would come out of that well on a fixed platform when you're sharing power with production from gas turbines. And at least we established the baseline, and having established the baseline, then we could then the operator can say, fine, if we think this well is going to emit this much CO2, let's go for a 5% reduction. Let's go for a 10% reduction. We're doing a big study in Norway to implement equipment that would reduce NOx and CO2, and it's the engineering and the installation of that equipment, right? But there's a lot of things that can be done with the capabilities that drilling contractors have today. But again, another very interesting point from the conference we attended, David, if you remember, there were two separate companies that went to the podium and showed a roadmap of emission reductions. And when you look at their roadmap of emission reductions, the two of them, independent companies that I'm assuming they didn't talk to each other before the presentation, had exactly the same roadmap, right? Had exactly not only the same roadmap in terms of getting to net zero, right, but in terms of the steps that they would take and the reduction expected on each one of the steps, right? First was to start using the battery energy storage was there at some point. There was the measurement systems way before that. There was the movement in the gas rather than diesel was there at some point. So I don't think there are too many answers in order to get to a drilling rig that reduces or that emits less greenhouse gases, right? I think the answer is somehow converging into this is how you do it, right? And the industry is somehow getting there. So it's just a matter of going step by step through that roadmap to eventually get there. But the really complicated point is who's going to pay for that, right? Because it's clearly additional equipment, it's clearly additional technology, and as we start finishing the low-hanging fruit, right? The nice juicy apple will be slightly beyond the reach of the hand, right? So you'll need to do additional effort. You'll need to put additional money, even for a battery energy storage system, right? It doesn't come for free. So those are the decisions that we'll need to take. But we're doing quite a lot. If you see, we put a sustainability report that I thought it was amazing. It did a baseline across all our operations. It not only covered environment, but went into quite a lot of other ESG areas, right? Went into anti-bribery and corruption, went into diversity and inclusion, went into so many other parts that we consider are part of sustainability. So we're doing a lot, and I think we just need to continue, right? Because it's a competitive market, and you cannot rest on your laurels and say it'll be fine, right? You need to keep working. Don't know if I answered Eric's question again on another long ramble.
No worries. There's lots of information to be able to take in there, and I appreciate all of it. I think it's really interesting to be able to hear about all the different steps, and in particular, their ESG. I guess I never thought about this, but anti-corruption does fall under the G portion of ESG. So
there's a lot of points. I remember one or two internal meetings, and I was just saying, guys, are we not complicating it, right? Are we not adding things that are perhaps not as relevant? And there was a really strong push say, no, that is part of having a sustainable business. If you want your business to be there for the next generations, if you want the business to basically endure the pass of time, there's a few things that you need to take care of, right? And it's looking at, there's even things like anti-bribery and corruption, right? One of those cases would sink the company just with the fines that you could take. So you need to make sure that you have the processes, the procedures, and the culture, so everybody understands that is not something that you would do, and that way your business is not exposed to that risk, or is less exposed to that risk. So no, we're looking to cover not only the technical part, but a lot of the softer part that is far sometimes difficult also to implement and get right, but we're trying.
So Eric said, he says, I know KCA DEUTAG is doing great on that side. Wanted to offer them a soapbox. So that was put that out there for. Okay. So jumping back to some questions we had before, many companies from the US are working on rig fleet standardizations, having some rig design / technologies, etc. Any initiatives within KCA DEUTAG on this, especially for Middle East, where company operates the most? This is from anonymous LinkedIn user. So thank you, anonymous LinkedIn user.
Yeah, that's hard, right? And we go back a little bit to the point of operating in North America or operating in the international market, right? I think, and again, it's my personal opinion, it's perhaps a bit easier operate in a relatively what's the right word, in a circle, in an area where you can control things more, right? Where you have your fleet and you can move it within similar conditions, where your logistics are there. Then I think it's far simpler to standardize. But when you operate and have to move rigs from one country to the other, when you go and in order to grow the business, you need to acquire companies, right? Then that becomes a little bit harder to have that degree of standardization. For example, for many years in the last 1 or 2 rig building cycles, we were only building Bentec rigs, right? German technology, manufactured in Germany, really high reliability when we started looking at those rigs against others. And that was a strategy that we were following and was quite successful. And then we go and acquired one company, and surprise, surprise, that company doesn't have Ventec rigs. And then we go and acquired another company, and surprise, surprise, that company not only doesn't have Ventec rigs, but doesn't have the same rigs that the other company had. So that adds another level of complexity into managing your operations and managing your operation across border. But I guess, you know, that's what we need to be good at the end of the day, right? At managing that, trying to standardize. I recently came from a trip, and they manage a multi-country region, and you know, it was extremely interesting to see how, as a strategy, they were basically trying to, if they didn't standardize across the whole region, at least they were standardizing on a country by country basis, right? So they could manage critical spares easier, so they could manage maintenance personnel with the same capabilities that they could deploy against the same rigs. So I guess what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way, it's not that straightforward. We try to do it as much as we can when we can, and when we cannot, we just try to manage it.
All right. I got one more question here for you. How do you fight procedural compliance complacency and missing out on allowing individuals to innovate with written checkbox items to accomplish a task? That's from our guest from 2 weeks ago, Andrea Switzer, drilling engineer. So,
yeah, I was watching Andrea's show yesterday as I was preparing for this, right? Because I didn't know what to expect. So I watched perhaps half of it. So hi, Andrea. I've seen you, and I've seen you on the show on this spot. I personally think in drilling there is a time for really strict procedural compliance, right? And there's a time for innovation and ideas and challenge. And let me just try to be a little bit more specific, right? When you are building the drilling program, where you are working on the drill plan, when you have trying to work out the best way to approach the drilling of the well, I think that is the perfect time to have as much experience as possible, as much innovation, as much out of the box thinking, blue sky thinking, however we want to call it. That's where this is really needed, and I'd say that's where it should take place. And sometimes the drilling contractors are not deeply involved in that, and we always push to be, because we have the cold face experience of being there and actually hopefully being able to show something. But there's another time where people need to follow the drilling plan and the drilling program that has been set and agreed, right? And if those are the instructions, if those are the steps, people didn't put them there because they just, for the fun of it, right? People put them there in that order because it's the safest way to do it and or the most efficient one. So I think when you are on the rig floor performing a task, lifting, tripping, you name it, I think at the rig floor you need to follow the plan. And we did. Honestly, we looked at millions of man hours and quite a lot of incidents that we had over the time to try to get to the root cause, as we were basically working out the value proposition for a lot of our technology ideas, and came to the conclusion that, I don't remember exactly, but was it 35-40% of incidents deep down were on procedural compliance. So I don't know if, because I'm not technical or anything. Don't know if I'm missing a point, but that's right. I think at the rig floor, when you're actually performing the job with heavy machinery movement in tough conditions, you need to follow the plan. In the way you build the plan, bring it on as much innovation, as much ideas, as much challenge, as much experience as possible, because that is what will make the plan better.
It's interesting you say that, Rodrigo, because I remember there was I think there was a article put out once upon a time about security data breaches, and they said that the data breaches weren't because of flawed technology or the proper designs and stuff. That every data breach essentially boiled down to somebody not following procedure, and that's what truly caused the incident, was somebody not doing what they were supposed to make sure that the system worked the way it was supposed to. So you could do all the pre-planning and do all of the design and everything in there, but then once it comes time to implementing, right, you need to be able to follow that procedure.
Yeah, and almost what's the point of dedicating so much time to planning and so much expertise into planning, then for somebody to say, oh, these guys don't know what they were doing it, I know the way to do it, and I'm going to do it this way, and then kaboom, right? Something happens, and that's really, the focus on safety. I think at some point touches very much on the human factor side, and on people really taking consciously the decisions to follow the plan. This tablet I was telling you about, right? We started with the app on procedural compliance, and we've expanded it and expanded it because people at the rig side actually find it useful, right? We went through the procedural compliance one, then the latest one has been, for example, the inspection app. And the inspection app is so cool, right? Because the maintenance personnel go to the rig site or go to the piece of equipment. They can access the maintenance history. They can basically take pictures of how the equipment is looking or what needs repair or maintenance. They can raise rig actions. It doesn't need to be 24/7 all the time connected to Wi-Fi. It's the beauty of it is that it can work offline. So before going out, it gets synchronized. You take the tablet out, you do your work, you come back, you synchronize it back in. We're now using it as a phenomenal way to share lessons learned. We get a lesson, we get an incident, we analyze it, lessons learned come out, and then it just the lesson gets distributed in the tablet across the fleet, across everyone, right? It's just like what phenomenal way and quick way to basically communicate something that happened and why it happened on a very easy solution that you make sure it gets to people. So there's quite a lot of I know I'm diverging the question a bit, right? But it's just interesting to see how that simple start on the procedural compliance app has grown and has been adopted really by the crews, right? And it's working.
All right, Rodrigo, we got one last question for you. There we go. Rodrigo, are operators becoming more collaborative in their management style, or is there still a lot of opportunity in this area?
It's a little bit of both, John. Back to this procedural compliance app, because it's an example that comes to mind. If the operator believes on it, and if the operator sees the value and they push it, then it works even better. So if the operator sees the collaborative approach, then things get much better and work in a more seamless way. There's others that do not, right? So I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag. We We have now those that really embrace that collaboration and try to, not only talk about a one team, but actually implement a one team, right? And the one team these days has not only been between the operator and the drilling contractor, but the one team, when it's implemented properly, involves also the service companies. And you have no idea of the gains that approach has actually shown. Now that one team doesn't work, and that one team is the collaborative approach. Now that one team doesn't work with every operator in every country, right? So again, back to the flexibility point, right? Try to work. You need to have in your DNA the point of being collaborative, and if on your counterpart really wants to put that culture through, then basically jump on the wagon and make the most of it, because that's really going to deliver a lot of value, not only for the operator, right, also for us, right, because that will keep us in the job, right? That mentality, that cohesion between people will make sure that we get that contract and the next contract and the one afterwards. Why would people change it when there is one team delivering value?
Well, Rodrigo, thank you so much for being on this show today. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you for everybody that's been watching and all of the questions that have come in. Be sure to tune in next week. Like I said, Thursday next week, I'll be live streaming from Corvacon. Then on Friday next week, we've got Tracy. Who's Friday next week?
Grant Pruitt.
Grant Pruitt. That's right. Oh, let me come back into focus. Grant Pruitt with Pruitt MPD. He will be coming on live streaming with us. The week after that, I will be in Alaska. I'm still trying to get a show set up for that. And we'll be back here once again. Then I think it's Thanksgiving week. So we won't be doing a show then. But please stay tuned for more. We will have the Torque and Drag mini-series that's going to be coming up starting in January of next year. Still trying to get a couple of those things hammered out. But once again, Rodrigo, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really do appreciate it. And I look forward to getting over there to your part of the world very soon and getting to learn even more about KCA DEUTAG.
Yeah, come along, but we won't do it on a Friday afternoon, right? Everyone is gone. No one in the office now.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're right. So yes, go enjoy your Friday evening. Go have a pint or what everybody does over there. For everybody that's been watching, I thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate it. And as always, know your industry.
Thanks.